Hey guys, this intro is going to be a little bit longer because I feel it's relevant. We've gone pretty much full circle back to Mia. So, listen up. Let's make a comparison because I think it's relevant. Old Mia. Here we go.
Today is a good day. You're on. Take that, foe. Clash with me.
Hey, that was old Mia, and by the way, I liked it. Okay, here's new Mia.
Woohoo! Woohoo! Summer is the best.
To be honest, the new voice actor is pretty faithful to the old one, but I'm gonna respect and enjoy the fact that the old one did a pretty fantastic job. So here we are. Let's get into it. Hey guys, Akariss here. Welcome to a brand new mode and what I generally think about it. So I want to preface this by saying that this isn't going to be like a full state of the game kind of video. I think I'll actually be covering something like that pretty soon, like my general impressions on Fe and how things have changed over time, maybe a more kind of like casual versus competitive kind of video, just my opinion, some thoughts, and it's been a while since we kind of had like a little bit of a dialogue. So look forward to that. Should be coming pretty soon, because especially with the new mode coming out, there is a lot of thought involved with that. But what I'm going to spend this video doing is kind of like talking about the mode overall, and so just kind of like clarifying things, honestly. So what you'll see on the left here is just some gameplay of me playing it recently. So if you kind of just want to see maybe some strategies that work or don't, start with that. Generally speaking, the mode is not hyper competitive. Like, it's not arena, it's not ether raids, and if you've played those ones, you'll know that something like water season arena or ether raids, especially in Astro season, can be some serious suffering. So right off the bat, I'm glad that the mode isn't hyper competitive. Like, you're not basically have to invest hard into this mode. You're just kind of using your barracks. A really good comparison that was made was like, this mode is, it uses seasons, but instead of seasons like fire, water, wind, and earth, instead of those, we pretty much use games. We use games to pretty much, use our barracks, and a mode like that is very good. There is definitely some praise for stuff like limited hero battles, and praise for Arena Assault, because you pretty much use a lot of your barracks. And when there's over hundreds and hundreds of heroes, and when a lot of the modes come down to like 4, 5, 6, 10 core units, you don't really get to use a lot of your barracks a lot. So I'm very happy when I run into a mode like this. Limited hero battles is a lot of fun, and I get to use my barracks as a wide berth of things I haven't used before. For example, I had a limited heroes battle clear. I believe it was Julius, and I used like Volter, who I haven't used in probably a year or so. Last time I used him was like on a fireball on air defense. So it was nice to like use him and some of my newer investments, including SM Erica. So I'm really hopeful for a mode like this, because it means like I'm gonna start using units I normally wouldn't, and that's pretty cool. In terms of like it being competitive, it's not really, because the units have like set stats, set positions, and there's a little bit of variety, kind of like when it comes to movements and such, or stats of your units and AI, but generally speaking, it's pretty set. So this means like you can get a good idea of strategies that work on every given week versus those that don't. Basically, you can follow a guide and get it clear if you really wanted to, using pretty much like free heroes given to you. This will be harder on some games than it would be on others, but generally speaking, it's not hyper competitive, and that's really cool. The rewards being just pretty much papers, flowers, feathers, as seen by the Fat channel, is it's not much, but from what I got from the notification, it seems like it will be a weekly mode. And Allegiance Battles is going to take a break here and there. Some people are upset that Allegiance Battles is kind of like going, but realistically, if it having an off week every other week, this just means that like we're losing about 2.5 orbs from a top ranking, about 1,000 feathers, and like 10 divine dew over the course of 2 months. So that's not really that much, because with the new mode being here, you're kind of making up for it with like a lot more papers and such. There's also been a little bit of discourse regarding these Harmonized Heroes and how you kind of need them to compete. I'm going to say right off the bat, this is not the case. Because it's on a 5-star seasonal, it's not given for free. This isn't like everyone has air or everyone has like peony, where like there's like a base level of rankings that everyone must meet to compete. So that's, that's not really a concern. Most people are not going to have a Harmonized Hero, and you're going to rise the rankings over a pretty set standard. There might be a little bit of a difference when we get to higher intervals, like think like arenas where you're like tier 8, 19, 20, and then tier 21 for those that are hyper invested. Just think like the ones that have Harmonized Heroes are just going to be like a couple of intervals above you, and the reward difference isn't that big. If we look at the reward gaps, I'm going to look at them later, you'll see that it is not that big of a margin. It's about like 4 papers per interval, and if we have a interval 21, then it'll probably be like 10 papers. Over the span of a couple of months, you're probably losing out on like 40 papers or so, 40 per month maybe if you're not really competing that hard. And if you look at how much papers you actually need to complete a path, which is 6,000, losing that little is not relevant at all. So like a couple flowers, a couple feathers, a couple papers, it's not that bad if you choose not to invest. And to be honest, I don't actually recommend investing yet. And you can pretty much wait for like a spark. A spark is the 40 summons guarantee unit. I suspect that probably within a couple months, and as we climb intervals, we might get a permanent Harmonized Hero, one that isn't seasonal, and you can pretty much guarantee grabbing one. Of course, waiting for a double seasonal or a legendary mythic banner where they show up is also a good idea, because that would get you some pretty good value there as well for your orbs. Generally speaking, orbs for papers isn't a great trade, and investing into other modes like Ether Raids, Arena should still be your primary focus if you're really aiming for rewards. There's not much of a gain by getting these Harmonized Heroes. Think of this as a mode where you can pretty much use the wide berth of your barracks and have a lot of fun doing it. 5 attempts is good if you want to try to figure it out yourself. If you feel like you can't solve it within 5 attempts, no harm in just looking up a guide or discussing strategies with other community members and going from there. So this is kind of like what I think about it. I like it as a mode. I'm glad we don't have like some hyper competitive mode again, where I have to be like investing hundreds of thousands of feathers or orbs, obliged to at least, to compete. You don't have to. You definitely will climb intervals, because most people just won't have these units. So I'm going to show you some things here on like how to understand the mode, what exactly you need to do to compete and such. So what we got is, this is what I feel like is the base score if you choose not to use a hero at all. Like, think of the games as being seasons. Every single week or so, they should change the games out, and you got to use particular units to compete, to increase your score. And that's good. Like I said, variety is good. Forcing people into certain strategies and not relying on the same 4 sets of units, four units as like your core for everything, is good. Variety is good, especially in a game with hundreds of heroes. So the base score is pretty low, like 210. This number it might seem a bit confusing, but generally just put units that meet the game, which is shown here. So if you don't have a Harmonized Hero, you should be seeing advanced 250 is like the base score for getting started. And as for which heroes to pick, well, if you've seen actually the gameplay already, I definitely recommend units that have a good dual phase, player phase, enemy phase. So like in this particular season, Ultina, for instance, is really good because she has distant counter, she has a brave weapon on player phase, brave on enemy phase, plus flyer mobility. That's an example of a pretty good unit here, because you gotta chase, so mobility is key. Stuff like Racing and Asala, good picks as well for this particular batch of games. So when we go into different modes, cavalry will likely be pretty good, especially combined like melee cavalry. Melee units in general do have a good advantage here, because every single unit, those ones that don't move, there's units that don't move. Basically all of them don't move, but they will attack if you're in range. Have like a seal where they have obstruct, but only on range units. So melee units with high mobility, calves, and the birds or the beasts can basically fly by, and by using lunge on them, you can effectively give yourself like 4 movement range. 3 kill the unit, lunge 4. It's very good strategy for catching those thieves, because you pretty much have like 2-3 turns to get some of the farther ones in. And then using like range units to kind of pick off things that obstruct. Keep in mind, Gale Force is not a strategy that you should use for here. You cannot really use it. It has some units that can. I believe like Yarn is one unit that can Gale Force, and if you don't kill the unit, then technically you can Gale Force off them, but this isn't a consistent thing to think about. Just try to chase them with high mobility units with good dual phase potential. That's my general tips for this. I might make a more advanced guide if needed, but I feel like it probably won't be needed, and hopefully you guys can figure this out. Of course, you can always feel free to discuss it in the community. Discord is a good place to do that, in the description below. And yeah, Twitch chat as well. If you come into Twitch stream, surely I'll be able to give you some tips as well for success. I don't feel like it's hard enough that you can't figure it out though, as long as you have a decent array of units in your barracks. So with that being said, let's continue. So 250 is about the base. If you ace it, and to ace it, you just pretty much need to not lose a unit, and you need to kill all the thieves. The other restriction is you cannot bring more than one dancer. One dancer is the limit. If you do that, you should end off with a score of 310. Starting from 250, you'll get about 60 bonus points. So that is the desired score if you don't have a Harmonized Hero, and that's pretty good. Like, it should get you advances in tiers pretty consistently. Now, if you do have a Harmonized Hero, your base score should be about 270, not including merges. The merges will give you additional score and give you a slight edge. Again, not really that important. Realistically, you don't need a Harmonized Hero to do this. It'll pretty much give you 20 extra base score over the 250 of those that don't have it. And again, this won't matter until months from now, when people have finally gone up the intervals at a consistent pace. Finally, as you can see here, if you do decide to get more than one, you get 2 Harmonized Heroes and you start merging them, the base score increases more and more, and that is how you pretty much make your progression in rankings in this mode. Again, like I said, don't feel obliged to do this. You really don't need to. It won't really show its effect until much later in for this mode. And then, like I said, the reward gap is not going to be huge between people who have a merge and don't. You're likely losing within double digits of a difference of rewards. It's really very, very little. And investing in like Ether Raids is much better, because the difference in like top 1k in Grails versus those that are like top 20k or something, that's almost like half the Grails. Like the guy up there has almost 2 times Grail income over those that don't. And that's a huge difference. So there's definitely modes that are better worth your orbs if you're looking to get something out of it. Not the mode for it. As you can see here, there's a 4 paper gap between every single interval and like 1 flower. So if we make it up to interval 20, if we use this pretty much this pattern, we'll be looking at like 80 papers up there. And maybe if there's an interval 21, 100 papers, just based off of like how Arena and Mjolnir Strike are and how their reward gaps work. So you're not losing too much. Think of this as just a for fun mode. And honestly, with that being said, there's not really more to it. Use high mobility units. Don't use Gale Force. 1 dancer. Make sure you match the games and have some fun, because it's a nice mode. I had a lot of fun doing it. I don't see this one being stressful in any way. Think of just using different strategies or heroes you most otherwise wouldn't have used if a mode like this didn't exist. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If I feel like this mode really does deserve an advanced guide, I'll probably make one. I will be making a guide, not a guide, but like a state of the game kind of opinion video overall of where I think FET is at the moment. You know, this could include things like FET Pass, the new modes, F2P pay to win arguments. Can you like how competitive do you need to be? What's the right playstyle? Like a lot of commonly asked questions I get. I'm gonna cover that all in a video. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and see you guys in the next one. Love. Peace.